Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Nightlight. I want to thank first Ken Quiethawk for his intro. Please check him out on the internet. He and his wife are native storytellers, and they have made a career out of sharing their gifts and their talents with inspiring other people to understand how the Native American people preserve their cosmology, their history, and their traditions through telling stories. Certainly, in my opinion, a better way of implanting important material into the hearts and the minds of young children. So please check him out. He's got lots of CDs, and they are a remarkable couple, and they have had a long and amazing career doing this work and sharing their talents and their gifts with others. Check it out, of course, after the show, please. Tonight I have an amazing gentleman on, and he and his co-author have written a wonderful book called Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution. And it's an amazing book. It inspires you to make your soul's growth an even stronger priority in your life. Based on 50 years of clairvoyant experience, Barbara Martin and Dimitri Moraitis, take you on an extraordinary journey through the many dimensions that exist in the world of spirit. They offer a clear picture of how spiritual growth is the process of evolving through the many inner realms of life, what the road to heaven looks like, and how the destiny of every soul is to reach the spiritual pinnacle. You'll learn effective meditations with divine light to increase your connection to the heavenly worlds, unlock your creative potential, and accelerate your spiritual unfoldment. Complete with full-color illustrations by fine artist Jonathan Wilshire, the breadth and the splendor of the spiritual worlds comes vividly alive in this life-changing book. Dimitri is the co-founder with Barbara Martin and co-spiritual director of Spiritual Arts Institute in California. Website is www.spiritualarts.org. He is an illuminated metaphysical teacher, healer, and co-author of numerous books with Barbara Martin. He's also the co-creator with Barbara of the SAI programs, course curriculums, and numerous workshops. He's been instrumental in bringing Spiritual Arts Institute to the place it is today as a premier metaphysical school. And there aren't a lot of those around, so please do check it out. An eloquent speaker on a wide variety of spiritual topics, he has lectured across the country, appeared on numerous radio shows, and leads with Barbara the workshops and training classes offered at the Institute. Welcome to Nightlight, Dimitri.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's a delight to be here.
Well, you know, you've got one of the coolest topics of all to speak about, and certainly my audience is very much into spiritual evolution and the expansion of the spirit and the reaching for the dimensions that are beyond the physical. And I mean, I could wax poetic on all of that, but I think this book is really a very precious book in that you are able to give insightful explanations of the different realms that the spirit does evolve through in its long, long journey towards joining Source or becoming a master or whatever aspect you feel the end of the journey is. So, I mean, it has to be an honor to work with Barbara and be able to, she paints such fabulous pictures, and you do, with words, that you see what it is she's describing that she has gotten through her meditations.
And her actual experiences of being in the realms. So absolutely. I mean, I have to talk, I think it's a good place to just start talking about her. You know, she was basically a born clairvoyant, and this was, you know, during the Depression era when, you know, these things just weren't discussed. You know, it's nothing like today. And from age 3, she was starting to see these auras as a young girl. She was starting to have other clairvoyant experiences, including being taken out of her body and going to the other side. And she said, I didn't think I was dying, and I was definitely not dreaming. But in the beginning, they were kind of, you know, pastoral, simple places and very pleasant, happy experiences. And she said, I really, you know, I didn't quite understand all that was happening. I couldn't interpret the auric energies that I was seeing, and I just knew, you know, God was around me, and I was attracted to certain things. If the energies were beautiful, and detracted if they weren't. And when she was 11, her father, interesting enough, was a Greek Orthodox priest, builder of churches. So the diocese would send him to different places in the country to build up, you know, literally physically build the church, build up the congregation. So the family was constantly moving. They were in Kansas City, Missouri, and she was 11, and he was building a church. And she joined a theater company. And the woman that ran it called her in one day and basically said, like, well, how do you see things, Barbara? Barbara said, what are you talking about? I see things normal. She says, no, how do you see things? Oh, and she said she's talking about that. And then basically the woman said, you can see the aura, can't you? And said, I can see it too, and I'm a Hermetic scientist. My mother and grandmother are both Hermetic scientists, and I want to kind of teach you about your gifts. So she got her first education at around 11, and Dorothy had these ancient handwritten manuscripts, nothing unfortunately that you can get on Amazon these days, and they explained a lot of things, and it was a very illuminating time for Barbara. Eventually the family moved, and she went to California during the golden age of Hollywood, and she started getting involved with showbiz, and it actually was becoming quite successful, but she got this inspiration, no, you're meant to be in metaphysics. So she started kind of developing her skills more steadily. She met this other woman who was a very advanced mystic herself, and basically trained Barbara to be a teacher. She Inez was her name. Inez taught only privately, but she told Barbara, no, you're going to go on the lecture platform. You're going to speak publicly. You're going to, you know, go over the airwaves. And sure enough, that's what happened. And she started these classes and workshops. And I met her some years later, obviously. I came to California to start a career in film and, you know, movies and television. And actually that was starting to go pretty well, but I was having these, I didn't even know what metaphysics was at that time. I was having these, what I call them my inspiration moments. They were these kind of moments of heightened awareness. And again, they were just wonderful. They kind of came by themselves. They left by themselves. But at some point it got so intense, it was my spiritual awakening. And I say it was kind of like my Saul in the road to Damascus moment. It was dramatic. But even then, I at first didn't quite understand what was going on. And then when I realized this was metaphysical, I couldn't get enough of it. And then about a year later, I met Barbara at a dinner party, and she did this meditation, and it was just like an ancient door opening up again. And then I started talking to her afterwards, and, I had a lot on my mind, so I was pressed not only with her answers, but I started to realize, oh boy, she's talking from experience, not just something she read in a book. She says I interrogated her that night, but I realized that evening she was she was my teacher. Right? This is the one I have to study with. So we jumped in right away, and she was restarting her classes at that time. But we also realized very quickly we both loved to write. And I got involved with sort of the business side of things right away. And then I really realized, boy, this isn't just personal. I think this is meant to be my career. And so we began this journey together. And some years later, she had amassed all this material, but it was all like in notes. It was no books. It was no CDs, nothing like that. And said, no, we have to organize this stuff. And we did. And I didn't realize as we were doing it, she was training me to be a teacher. I was kind of happy being her student and doing the writing work and other things, but she was sort of maneuvering me for other things. And so we started what eventually became Spiritual Arts Institute, which to really give a home for this work, a place for people to spiritually grow and develop themselves. And we opened up an institute here in Encinitas near San Diego. And, we've been doing teleconferencing classes long before the Zoom era came on there, so that you can join from any place in the world. And we've been writing these series of books. We've got a course called The 7 Spiritual Arts, and we're writing a book for each one. This one, Heaven in Your Spiritual Evolution, is the 5th in the series. When we tell people the first book, Change Your Aura, Change Your Life, tells the world what we do. We meditate with divine light. But this tells the world who we are, a spiritual growth organization. Just as you said in your opening, we're helping souls grow. That's our mission. That's our purpose. And hopefully the goal of this book is to help encourage people to make their growth a higher priority. I mean, I'm sure most of your listeners have had their awakening, which means God has knocked on their door. And the point is, are you answering the call? Are you doing everything you can to live that higher life? Because it's an extraordinary opportunity. The higher shares, has never been a better time to grow spiritually than today. I mean, to have this conversation, even not that many years ago, would have been unheard of over the broadcast nation, shall we say. So it's a sign of the times, and we're in a renaissance that is still very much on the ascent. So it's only going to get more and more interesting as the years go on.
Well, I totally agree. When I started in this field in the 60s, early 60s.
Oh boy! Yeah.
If
you're a pioneer too.
Yeah. 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 It was sort of like I was teaching school in Michigan, and I realized that if they knew what I was involved in, where my true life was going to lead me, I would have lost my job. And it got to the point where when I did quit teaching, they knew what I did, and they came to workshops, and it was amazing to see the acceptance that is out there. And lately, in the last couple of years, I feel strongly there has been a greater awakening than ever before. People are, they've been given time to delve into themselves and to look into the greater picture that is in front of them. And so many people are, first of all, so many people understand the difference between the soul and the spirit. And it's, to me, that's an amazing shift and change. And that they are looking for, okay, so how do I get into the ascension process physically in this lifetime, and not waiting until I cross over to sit down and have somebody tell me that this is the direction we're going. How can I start it now, and how can I look for those portals now? And your book gives wonderful meditations for people to start in on that process, to make the connections. I mean, the connections are always there. It's just that we we hadn't really realized they were there. And, it was sort of like, well, I'll live my life and see what it says on the other side when I get over there. Well, you don't have to do that. You can start now. And that's why I think your book is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, Yogananda said the goal is to see God face to face while in a physical body. Now, he didn't mean literal face to face, but he meant awakening the God experience. If Earth is a schoolhouse, yeah, you're right. You got to learn your lessons here, not when you leave school.
Well, that's the purpose of the physical plane. I mean, in the spiritual realm, you're not able to experience the physicality that you can while you're down here. So it's sort of like everything is a lesson and everything is built upon. But when somebody comes to you and says, okay, I want to really work on my spiritual development, and and of course probably the first thing is meditation, but everybody, it's interesting. Everybody wants to know, okay, what level am I on? And it's not a matter of what level you're on, actually. It's a matter of how are you surrendering to the guidance of the other side.
Well, boy, you bring up so many interesting things. So first of all, let's, again, and I'm sure maybe your listeners are aware of this already, but what actually is spiritual growth? What does that actually mean to grow spiritually? So we know what it means to grow from a child to an adult. We can see the physical changes, the mental, the emotional changes as you're maturing from, different, as the years grow. We know there's a thing we call a path. Where does the path lead to? We know there's such a thing as growth. What does it mean to grow, and how do you measure it? Well, from the metaphysical perspective, growth is the evolution through the dimensions of life. But you are doing it now. As you say, you're doing it now, and you're doing it on the other side. You're doing it in both places. So right now, you and I are vibrating on a particular vibration that literally does correspond to a place on the other side. Many don't realize the other side isn't one place, it's many places. In my Father's house are many mansions. So we're vibrating to that level now. So if I had to cross over today, I'd take the power, the light I've earned today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, today, and that would determine where I end up on the other side. It's not really punishment or reward. It's like attracting like. Now, if Earth is a school, most schools, you graduate, right, from one grade to another grade to another. You try to improve. You're learning, you're growing, you're passing stages of growth here. So what we say is, okay, we're all ended for greatness. We don't go to heaven, you grow to heaven. That's the first chapter of the book. It was almost going to be the name of the whole book. But we're not all going to grow to heaven at the same pace and in the same moment. So what we say is, okay, eventually I'm destined for that glory, but in this life, how far up the spiritual ladder, how many dimensional levels, how much change can I make in this life? And if you have had the awakening, it means it's your time to take that yoke of light, and really it's a quantum jump. We all are growing, even if we don't use the word spiritual growth, but when you're aware, there is a seismic jump that you can make. So, okay, how far up the ladder can I go? That's what we need to focus on. So by making your growth a higher priority, you want to leave this earth not only better than the way you found it, but a higher level of consciousness than when you started. And the reason the aura is so important in all of this is the aura and the divine life is the fuel of your evolution. You said, how do you start the growth? Well, you start by earning light. Your light is your passport to eternity. It's your passport to the other side. So as you earn more spiritual power through all the good things that you're doing and through meditation, absolutely meditation is foundationally important, you're building up your auric field. And you will take your light with you. You're not going to take your fame, your fortune, your good looks. Well, you might take your astral body might look pretty nice. But, you're going to take your light. You're going to take your L-I-G-H-T. So that's the most precious thing you possess. It's much more important than money and all these other things. As important as money is, I'm not downgrading the value of money, but light, you need to earn that light. So yes, meditation is foundation. It's so funny when we teach it. Some people say, well, I don't have time to meditate, or I got the monkey mind, I can't concentrate while I meditate. And it's kind of like a skill, like anything else. Just learn to quiet the mind, make room for it in your life, and watch how everything starts to fall into place.
Exactly. And, there are, there are many meditations in the book, which are all fabulous and beautifully written. But, if somebody has never meditated, empty mind meditation is a good way to start, where you start with 2 to 3 minutes of just emptying your mind and just sitting in silence, and then extending it so that, you can integrate other things into it. I think the one thing, too, that people don't realize is that past lives, there are aspects of past lives that we carry lifetime to lifetime to lifetime as well, so that we're adding to the piggy bank in many different ways. And just in our, so go ahead.
No, I was going to say, now you're touching on another gigantic topic. You can't climb the spiritual pinnacle in a single life. So we come in many, many lives. It's kind of like grades in school to evolve. So yes, we all come in with unfinished business. We all come in, it's kind of like there's this giant novel, and, we kind of jump in on page in the middle chapters, and there's this whole history that happened before, and there's this history that's still yet to be unfolded, and we're kind of in the journey. So you have to pay attention to that, because you may be drawn to certain people or certain things, and there may be a past connected to that, and there may be a reason you're with the people. For example, if your family, your loved one, of course you've known them in past lives. Of course you've been involved with them before, and you're coming back again to continue the relationship, to improve or work through things, and all of that's part of the journey. So reincarnation gives the soul time to grow. I mean, it's unrealistic to try to think in the short frame of time we have in this life, it will determine all of our eternity. That's a heck of a lot of pressure. But the idea that we're always given a second chance, even if we muff it up, is a very consoling. I love Henry Ford, when he adopted the theory of reincarnation. He said, when you write this, interview, write it so it puts people's minds at ease. Because when I got this, I realized there's time to create. We don't have to finish everything in creation in this life. All we have to do is finish the task that we were given. And if you finish your potential, finish your purpose in this incarnation, there's nothing more satisfying. You'll be given time to do other things. Barbara's talking about one story when, there was a gentleman, she knows people from the other side, he was very good. I think he was an accountant. He did a great job caring for his family. He loved to sing, but he never really got to do it in this life. Well, he crossed over, and guess what he was doing? He was singing. So we don't always get to, we have our priorities. There's things we got to get done in this life. We got to make sure we pay attention to the things that are absolutely essential. But in time, it's all going to play out, and we're all going to get it all done. Just make sure you're taking care of the things that are in front of you. Sometimes we're looking too far ahead or too far behind. God isn't in the future or the past. God is in the present. So make sure you are living where you are here and now. And yes, of course, plan for your future, but live now. Live where you are here.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that is hard for so many people to grasp is that the spirit is immortal, eternal. So that literally when you say you have all the time in the world, that's true. There have been moments in my life when I've taken a look at stuff and said, I'll get to that next lifetime because it isn't going to happen this lifetime.
Yeah.
And I would love to. I'd love to be able to figure out how to roll over my credit cards to the next lifetime too, but I'm pretty sure I haven't figured
Tap into
that isn't going to happen.
bank accounts, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's I think it's amazing that when you stop to think about it, our spirits have been on a journey for probably thousands, millions of years, and so to be able to have an awakening in a lifetime where you can take a look around and you can understand where you're coming from, where other people are coming from, where you can teach yourself to see and feel auras, where empathy can be something you can develop, where books like yours make people aware of different ways that you can utilize inspiration and intuition and expand your ability to reach into other people's energy fields and use them. So often in the past, people haven't even dabbled in this, and today there are scientists that are actually working on proving that this energy exists, which is fabulous.
Well, there is a new science that's emerging because, let's face it, materialism is not going to solve the problems of the world, and materialistic science will not solve the problems of the world. So, and it was an artificial creation anyway, so the scientific method is absolutely fundamental, but you can apply it to spirit as much as you can to apply anything physical. Just have to use the same laws, So, yeah, I'm happy that we're there. It is a very interesting dynamic change in attitude, and you've got more converging points of view. And in some ways, science and spirituality are almost like back-to-back now. They're getting very close. They just still need to sort of turn around and look at each other a little bit more directly. But it'll get to that. It'll get to that. The truth always wins
absolutely.
At the end. Yeah. But you brought up a very other point is the other side, we get our inspiration now from the other side. So, again, some do think, well, inspiration, the other side's great, but we'll talk about it, when I'm getting ready to die or that kind of thing. I'll deal with it when I cross over. No, but everything that's been created here was first created there. So by getting more in touch with the inner realm, so to speak, you are getting more in touch with your own inspiration. So that's another reason you want to feel that closeness to the world of spirit, because it's part of your life right now. It's part of everything that you're doing now. So, the inspiration, the light, the wisdom, it's all coming from somewhere. It's not just floating in the atmosphere, and these inner worlds are where it's coming from. And again, you want to be in touch with, you may not be able to say where an inspiration is coming from, but you want to be open to inspiration. And the challenge with inspiration is that you can't control it. It's going to come in its time. The only thing you can do is orient your life and orient your consciousness so that you're ready for it. I used to play a lot of piano, and I love the stories of like Beethoven. They say you'd be having lunch with a guy, and right in the middle of lunch, right, he'd be getting this wild look in his eyes, and they say, oh, he's getting some musical idea, and he would say, I'm sorry, lunch over, I got to go. He totally surrendered to his muse. Now, yeah, that might have made him a little bit difficult to live with. But if he hadn't have done that, we probably would have been missing some of the concertos or the symphonies, or
Oh my,
so
yes.
When you get the inspiration, there's a reason it's coming. To Handel, when he wrote that great Hallelujah chorus, which he did in record time, he literally said, as I was writing it, I was in heaven. I was in heaven. So he was essentially musically describing what he was actually experiencing.
Yeah, there are several of the major composers that have said things like, I have been working with celestial music and hearing the angels sing and all sorts of stuff like that. And it is
well,
there
music
is
comes from the inner world.
I was going to say the element of music and the frequency of the tones and everything does take you out of body, and if you drift with it, you do see magical things. I think one of the important things too in your book is you lay out the fact that there are numbers of different spiritual realms, and it feels as though as you move up the ladder, so to speak, through the different realms, and the astral, the mental, the causal, and the etheric, and then of course the heavenly realms, that I got that there was a sense that you became lighter and lighter, more a being of light, that you lost density in order to flow into these different levels. And I think it was amazing how she explained, and you explained, the different levels and the kinds of things that were worked on in the different levels, and the kind of direction the soul would take in these different levels as far as expanding its consciousness. Right. I mean, it was very profound.
No, I appreciate you. Yeah. Well, that's also reflected when the book, as you mentioned, is beautifully illustrated. And we knew we wanted to depict the other side, but we said, what do you do? Do you make like a travelogue, a series of really beautiful images? But then we did exactly what you're saying here. No, let's tell a story through the pictures. So there are 8 of them, and they represent 8 different dimensions where key things happen in our evolution. So it is a dimension of life that you can literally be on, and it's as real as where we are right now. But also it's a state of consciousness, and also it's a phase in your evolution. So, okay, the 7th astral world, that's where you reach your enlightenment. And that's where you awaken the godly presence, but it's hardly the end of the journey. It's like you were blind and now you see. And now a whole new phase of your world opens up as an enlightened soul. So we were trying to show that, to experience, just like you're saying, these are places, people think of heaven as a place to aspire to, but it is a place to aspire to, but it's also a state of consciousness that you have to embody here in physical life. So as you become of the heavenly vibration here, that's what will make you ready to be a citizen of the actual heaven worlds. And we are meant to be part of it because we came from the highest realm. We are creations of the ultimate, and this is a pilgrimage. Yeah. We started as infants, and now we're growing. We're literally becoming spiritual co-creative beings.
I think that some people have the impression, and everybody, when you cross over, basically you sort of initially get what you expect, but I try to explain to people that it is not a celestial rest home. It's a school. And you're not going there to sit and fish. You can probably sit and fish, but the element is that you're more involved in consciously moving forward spiritually than you are here. So that there is work that is done on the other side, and you don't just sit, lay by the fire and eat bonbons. It just doesn't happen. And when
that's
people
the image of heaven, right?
Yeah.
The heavens is you're on clouds and you're playing harps all day long, and that's kind of what you do. And some say, well, gosh, if that's what I'm going to do in heaven, sounds kind of boring. But what we like to say is, no, think of it the opposite. There's more creativity there. You are more creatively active in heaven. Imagine your most creative day here on earth and multiply it by 100. And now you're trying to get an idea of what it's like to be in heaven. You're more active there. You're more expressive. You're more creative because you've earned all that power and awareness to be able to do that. God is a creator. You're being part of a creative process. We are creative beings inherently, but we're learning to become more creative. So it's more exciting further up the ladder you go.
Yeah, and it is like a ladder. But I kind of, you use the term ladder, and when you use the term ladder, all I saw was a spiral upwards. So maybe it's a twisty ladder. It just felt to me as though there was a greater flow to it. There was a gentle movement up and up and up and up. And you did mention the different levels You have the different realms, but in those realms there are levels as well, so that there's movement in subtle directions each lifetime, and you don't it's not a one-shot deal. You might spend many lifetimes on a one particular level, because that's where your growth, and most people think, well,
but that's what
I did,
it takes. That's what it takes.
Yeah, but so many people
many
think,
lifetimes.
Yeah, so many people think, well, I had, I know I had a lifetime here and here and here, so now I just have these lifetimes to go, and then I'll be at the top. No. Journey.
The other thing we got to realize is this is a little bit the realistic part. Our evolution is not a straight line upwards. It's not like one lifetime's automatically better than the next. So what happens is you have these lifetimes where you do make a lot of progress, and then another lifetimes where you muff it up. So it's a little bit more like a stock market graph. It kind of looks up and down, but the overall trend is upward. So sometimes we're in what's called a redemptive life, meaning we have reached maybe a pinnacle, we've lost it somehow, but this is the life where we can recapture it. And if this is a redemptive life, it means you can make leaps through realms, because in a sense you've already done it. And now you've paid back your karmic debts, you've worked out the mistakes of whatever caused you to fall to begin with, and now the divine is saying, we're giving you the chance to recapture. So, this time is not only a time where many are making a leap from one dimension to another, it's a time of calling old souls home, where some that have climbed quite wonderful places, but maybe are not exactly where that point right now, are given that opportunity to take their place and fulfill, because this is that magic time. The accelerated growth is stronger today than it's ever been. We see acceleration in all facets of life. My God, look at the pace of life today compared to 50 years ago. Come on.
Oh my gosh.
It's pretty dramatically changed. Yeah. But that's happening spiritually too. There's a spiritual quickening that's happening.
There is, and sometimes people misunderstand the purpose of a lifetime sometimes. And I've known a couple people that have said, well, I've perfected so much that I'm here now to teach other people. And to my mind, we teach by not by words certainly, but more so than anything else by how we live our life and how we function within life and how we treat other people. Those if you say you're a teacher and that's how you're teaching, I would say you're right. But and then there are people like you guys who put together an organization where people are safe and able to understand and grow through that process. But so many people today think it's an easy trip. It is an easy trip. It's just much longer than people think.
Well, but look, nothing. Value is, with no effort, it's not worthwhile. Right. If it was easy, it would not be worthwhile. Think of when just anything where you've really struggled with something, conquered it. You climbed Mount Everest. You thought you were going to die trying to get up there, but you did. There's a sense of satisfaction that just can't be made any other way. So it's okay that of course, it is the most exciting and most demanding adventure there is, because, look, in any other endeavor, you are perfecting a part of you. So Beethoven was perfecting, let's say, his musical part. But in evolution, every part of you has to be developed. Nothing can be left undeveloped. So it is the most demanding, but it's also the most rewarding. But again, because I think you're trying to say is you have to pace yourself in the journey. You're not going to reach perfection overnight. And anybody that says enlightenment in 5 easy steps, run the other way. They either don't know what they're talking about or they're trying to deceive you. And there's been a lot of those people that claim easy access to the spiritual heights. It doesn't work that way. Look, even Barbara, with all her gifts, it was 20 years of training before she was really a teacher. There are a lot of what we call half-bakes out there. They learn a couple of things and suddenly they think they're teachers. And no teacher is, if you're in this earth, it's because you have something to learn. You're in school because you need to learn. Even the great, advanced souls were still learning. They were just learning on a different level. If I'm learning in kindergarten, it's different than if I'm learning, my PhD. But we're both still learning in different ways. So the great ones, even like the Buddha, had his challenges, had his tests, which he could have failed. Jesus had his test. He could have failed. It's not a test unless you have the option to fail it. So there has to be those trials.
My philosophy on teachers is that that no teacher should try to teach an aspect or a lesson that they have not experienced themselves.
Right.
Because unless you're teaching from experience, your words are empty. And
exactly.
That's
exactly. And that's
that's why
what we say is.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Go ahead.
okay, you're learning something here, but don't just simply accept it because we're teaching it. Put it to the test yourself. Yes, we have proven it for ourselves, but you first of all, it's not our ideas. It's coming from the higher. We're not making this stuff up. So you put it to the test, and your own experience of it will be the own validation of it. So you're the alchemist. You're the spiritual scientist. You're the one that's going to do it. And sometimes it will take time to put some things to the test. I mean, simple things like, it sounds simple like forgiveness, right? We can say I forgive, but it doesn't mean we've done it. And that can be a lesson that some of us will learn for many, many years. My father was a psychiatrist, and he said one of my kind of naivete when I first started is I would sometimes know what was going on with a person, and I would just say it. I would say, this is what's the issue. And they get mad at me. They're paying money to get a medical advice. You're giving it to them, and they're getting angry, and it's because they weren't ready to hear it. So he would say sometimes they would spend years in therapy to come to that conclusion for themselves. But guess what? It was years well spent, because until you see it for yourself, it doesn't really have value. If I say something to you, it's not the same thing as you experiencing it for yourself. You can say something to me, Dimitri, I know that I sense this about you, recognize your advice, but until I really see it happening inside of me, I won't really do anything about it. Many times when Barbara was doing her readings years ago, they would treat her like a psychic. Oh, tell me who I'm going to marry, and, all that. Even if it was blazing in lights in the auric field, it's you to discover it. And interestingly enough, the very, very rare times where she would just kind of more point blank say something was very rare. They never did it anyway. So it doesn't work unless, a teacher helps point the way, but we have to do our own growing, and that there's no other way around it. And, we have a section in the book about some of the pillars of what to do. Meditation, you said, is absolutely number one. We meditate with divine light, and that is a fantastic way. But, one of the basics, the way you live your life, your ethics, your morality, your code of conduct. I mean, every spiritual tradition, whether it's the Ten Commandments, the Golden Rule, the Eightfold Path, all of that's conduct of living. You've got to live it. And there are people who are growing better and faster by living it, even if they don't use the word spiritual, than people that say, oh, I'm very spiritual and I'm growing. And it's more spiritual egotism rather than actually growing. So you said that earlier in the show, you better be walking the talk. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things, too, that I felt, I'm not sure you directly said it, but I felt it, is that this process is joyful. And becoming more evolved and
exciting.
Becoming more, it's a joyful experience. And if you aren't feeling joy inside of yourself, then you have to step back and say, okay, let me just change my focus a little bit, because I'm not feeling the kind of joy I think I should be feeling. And when you get it right, it flows so unbelievably for you, and there is a sense of exhilaration and joy that comes from being in the right place, that whether it's meditating, whether it's being creative, whether it's speaking a truth that is just so unbelievable you can't believe it. There is joy that triggers something inside of you, so you know, I hit something right. There's something special here, and
that's
it's the greatest gauge. You know, am I on the right pathway? Are you full of joy? No, then you're not. Step back, take a look, change what you need to change, and when you're joyful, then you'll know you're there for the moment.
Well, you want to make sure you're not letting the cares of life cloud, you know. I mean, yes, I was extremely excited when I completely changed my life when I had my awakening. People thought I was nuts. They would say, you've been in California way too long. Time to come home, you know. But there was, like you say, this sense of excitement. It's kind of like you discovered something amazing and all the amazing stuff connected to that. Now you have to be careful how you navigate through things, because my mistake early on is I didn't realize others weren't sharing in that same joy. You know, so sometimes I was a little too chatty. Sometimes I was a little too. Everybody was having their spiritual awakening like I was. You know, again, it was just so new to me. And Barbara sometimes would say, "Shh, just be more low key about it." So I learned that with time. You know, and also learned, don't try to push anybody, because if they haven't had their awakening, you know, if I had met Barbara before my awakening, I would not have recognized her as my teacher. I had to have the awakening first.
I think one of the only downside is that when you have this kind of a joyful, exhilarating experience, you look around and it's like, who can I share this with? And people won't understand it unless, of course, they've had the same type of experience. And for the most part, usually it happens when, you know, there's nobody around. My cats get a lot of it. You know, it's like, you know, let me tell you this, and it's like, feed me and I'll listen. But it's just, you know, sometimes I get off a radio show and I am just so exhilarated because it was so magical, and it's like, who can I tell? And you know, it's that kind of an experience, and you can't share it, but you want to. So you do something that you can share. You know, I'll do writing, or I'll put stuff up on the website, or I'll do something where I can channel that energy into something that's positive and helpful for other people, or something like that. So,
well, you know, we're social beings, and fellowship is really important. You know, that's a very important point. You need to, you know, we're fellow spiritual travelers, right? And we need to kind of support each other in the journey. And I think that's one of the joys of doing this work is, you know, meeting people like yourself. I mean, you're meeting people that are trying to better their life. You're meeting people that are trying to, in those fellowships, you know, they say the ties of blood run deep, but the ties of spirit run deeper. And the bonds that can be created in the world of spirit are beyond anything else, because they're not bound by space and time, you know. So they're essentially eternal. You know, we say this about loved ones that that have crossed over. We say, look, no love is ever lost. They may be gone from this side of life, but you'll reunite with them. You know, they say, well, will I see my father, my mother, my husband, my wife? And if there was love, yes. If there wasn't, no, probably not. The love will reunite the two of you, and even pets. If you've been loving a pet for like 10 years, 20 years, you better believe that pet's waiting for you on the other side. Because
I have a whole menagerie. Yeah.
Oh, that you probably
I've got I've got a good 20 or 30 over there. So I'm
Oh my
some
goodness!
of them I'm really.
You're gonna have a You're gonna have a zoo over there. Yeah, that'll be nice.
I
Yeah.
am.
And the reunions are fun. The reunions are fun. Yeah.
Well, I think that it's important for everybody to understand that there's so much you can do in the here and the now that even through meditation can take you to those other realms. So, I mean, this book is important for people in that, there are instructions there. There is guidance there. There's also, guidance on the other side as well. And, we haven't gotten into the fact that there are teachers and guides that are on the other side that work with us here on this plane as well, so that understand that there is protection and guidance, in the physical realm as well. And it's a matter of being aware and being sensitive to what's going on around you, because you can sense them, you can feel them, and you can know that there is guidance. Now, I don't know about pulling you, from in front of a locomotive, but, we are here also to work through lessons. So that means that sometimes, difficult things happen in our lives because we need to stretch ourselves and grow through them and beyond them. But there is guidance, so that if you're paying attention, you can get insight into the whys and the wherefores a lot better, and not say, oh, I was just unlucky, because I don't believe that things are unlucky. I believe they are challenges. And if you step back and say, all right, how do I get through this in a creative way? How do I make it be positive for everybody? And if you're looking for that kind of an attitude and direction, you'll get it and you'll find it, and you'll find lessons much easier.
Yeah. Well, you're hitting on another fundamental key. One of the challenges we had with the book is, like with the aura book, okay, you zoom in on the aura. Karma book, you zoom in on karma. But if you're talking about evolution, you have to weave in several spiritual principles. You can't tell the story with just one. And the other side is one of those principles. We talked a little bit about the aura. We talked about karma, reincarnation, you have to come back. And now you hit on the other one, what we call the spiritual hierarchy. You are not walking the path alone. You are guided throughout your journey in life. You could be on a deserted island and you're still never alone. There's a beautiful saying in the Talmud, for every blade of grass, there's an angel bending over saying grow. So everything in life is supported from the inner worlds. And the problem, not the problem, but the challenge here is the support is hidden. You don't see it unless you're, shall we say, clairvoyant. But on the other side, the veil is lifted. So one of the most beautiful things on the other side is you're not any more evolved over there. You're not suddenly a saint when you cross over. But the realms are understood to be guided over by these divine beings. So imagine now if we lived our life here on earth with awareness of the angels and the archangels and the interaction with them. Imagine how, but our spiritual status hasn't changed. We're exactly where we are as far as that for right now. But suddenly we realize there's this whole other dimension of life helping us now. Imagine how civilization would behave. It would be quite different. But that's how it's run on the other side. So there are places on the other side that are so much like Earth. If you would cross over, you would think almost like, I didn't even leave Earth. And of course, other ones are more, more elevated in that sense. But all the realms, regardless if it's more primitive or more developed, the hierarchy is working with them. So there's this interaction, even with souls that are in their very primitive stage, long before they would incarnate on Earth. They understand that there's this interaction. They may not fully understand who the angels are and the holy ones, but they know they're kind of this guiding force. So that's what makes the other side, obviously a pleasant place. Things are moving in their natural rhythm. Here, it's a little more complicated because we do have the physical veil. We do have the, the thing that's drawn. but we have to seek it out a little harder here. But again, like we were saying, with greater effort comes greater reward. It is harder here, but they also say you can grow faster here than you can grow anywhere else because of the challenges. Unfortunately, you can also fall off the path faster here than you can. So the point is to stay on your hobby horse. You know, don't get caught up in the doom and gloom stuff of the world, and you know, it'll take care of itself.
I've often had arguments with the other side about, you know, I thought I did this already, you know, and are we repeating it because I didn't do it right or I didn't do it well? And, you know, or can we skip this one and go on to the next? But yeah, and I often get laughter back. You know, that's exactly what I get. It's almost like they seem to be amused that I'm trying to bargain with them. I haven't quite won an argument yet, but I'm going to keep trying.
Yeah. Well, that movie Defending Your Life, you know.
Oh, yes. I love that life. What were you in a past life? Lunch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
That was a good movie. I just noticed our time, and we are almost out of it. I want to thank you so much. We could go on for hours and hours, but I know you have a schedule and stuff. But you want to give your website, and so people can find you and the school?
Yeah. Well, thank you also for all your knowledge. You know, I do quite a few interviews, and not that many are as knowledgeable about the general subject as you are. So it was very helpful to interact on this level. So I appreciate that. Yes, our website is spiritualarts.org. Of course, the book is Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution. You can get it in bookstores or online. And we do have plenty of classes, workshops, events. So we invite you to, you know, whether online or if you're local to the Southern California area, please visit us. You know, we are a wonderful fellowship, and you know, it's wonderful to meet people that are sharing the same journey together.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, I'll, you know, don't know what the calendar holds, but you know, it would be fun to get you back on again to grill you a little more. So
yeah, that'll be fun. We'll figure that one out for sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom and knowledge, and Barbara's. And please thank her as well, because the book is beautifully, beautifully written.
Yes, I will pass it on. Thank you so much.
Okie doke. And thank you, everybody, for listening. It's been a pleasure talking about this material. You know, it's my wheelhouse, and I adore all of the insight that this book has given, and I strongly recommend it. It's an excellent book. Thanks for listening, and check us out next week. This will be up on YouTube tomorrow, and check it out there. This book has a great deal of magical stuff in it. It would be fun for you to read and experiment with and gain insight from. Thanks again, everybody. We'll be talking to you next week. Good night.